Hey, welcome back everyone. This is Blueprints and I am KFW. So, in the last episode we finally fully drained the reservoir. And we are now, well, we're going to try to go down and get the Sanctum Key that's in the reservoir today. That would be my goal. Another goal is to go to the place that I opened up from the castle puzzle. But I need a day when I get the Southern Cross. That's the name of the constellation. That's the 5 stars in a cross. And I looked up what days I would get it. It won't be today, but day 36, I'll be able to find the Southern Cross. That's not true. Not day 36. 36 stars, I'll be able to find the Southern Cross. What am I talking about? So it'll be a couple more days minimum before I can do that puzzle. So I'm going to keep my eye on the star count, and if I end my day with 35 stars, I want to end it not in the break room so I can do that puzzle. So today, I think I want to get a ton of keys. Now what I can do is switch this to yellow and buy keys from the locksmith or do a trick at the laundry room, but I think I want to get a couple of rooms before I do that to make sure I don't get the laundry room too early, because it'll cost me 10 coins to swap with keys, giving me 24 keys. But if I can get more coins beforehand in a different room and then switch to yellow as the room type. I don't want either of those, so we're going to do this here. And then something to the left. Attic is good. I can get more items from here. I mean, grabbing keys from this also works just fine. 3 gems, jeez. Coin purse is good. Magnifying glass is great. If I get that mailroom again, I can look at those stamps. An additional coin. Metal detector is good. Is that it? That might be everything that's up here. Let's see what I can do over here. Hopefully a room that curves to the right. The only thing I got... I don't know if I want to read a book out of the library today, so let's do this. I don't know, maybe I could make today the day I take care of the library book, too. Because there's only one library book left. And I can just do it now. It's a long one, which is why I'm putting it off, because it'll basically take up the whole video. No, I don't want to lose my coins today. We're going to read a book. I'm not going to use my key there, though. This book is called The Curse of Black Bridge by Redford Ewing. And here we go. Let me get the magnifying glass out of the way. Once upon a time. Forward, the legend of Blackbridge is one that's well known to the people of the Grand Realm, for versions of this tale have been passed down from generation to generation. With each new telling, the story has changed, becoming over the years more colorful, more verbose, and as one might expect, increasingly horrifying. However, with so many renditions and unique personal touches, the task of confining and binding this tale to text seemed an ambitious and impossible challenge. Over the course of my research, I have heard dozens of variations of the legend, and while the details would often change, I was surprised how much of the story's heart remained the same. Yet the more I listened, the clearer it became that there could never be a definitive version of this tale capable of capturing all the wonder and myth of Black Bridge. In the end, I chose to write down what felt most authentic, the story my grandmother told me as a boy, long ago. Part 1. The Berry Picker from Oris. Many years ago, before peace had become a familiar word, there lived a group of rogues so wayward that the locals deemed it appropriate to call their number the Unholy Hounds. They were feral outlaws composed of society's worst, in a time when society was at its worst, and for each crime that fearful travelers credited to the group, a dozen more lay unclaimed, each worse than the last. For the gentry, however, who often value their coffers more than their companions, no crime could measure more wicked than the group's primary enterprise, high-road robbery. One such member of this so-called band of rogues was a boy of 13 years, Jesper, who had not been lucky in life, having lost 2 brothers to war and parents to famine. In the years of hunger that followed, Jesper lived in a gutter behind a churchyard, relying on the nourishment of scurrying bugs and weeds harvested from the cracks of the alleyway to sustain his pitiful existence. It is not surprising that a child, aiming to escape such hardships, would take any easy road out, an easy and well-traveled road, paved with temptations, leading out of the city and into the gentry lands where loose purse strings entwine with the strands of salvation and glisten equally with the hope of opportunity. It was this road that eventually led Jesper to the end of his youth, a hidden cave at the bottom of Blackbridge Canyon. It was here that he met his surrogate family and saviors, that notorious gang of godless outlaws known as the Unholy Hounds. Despite the hardened circumstances that had led him to this vocation of banditry, Jesper was surprisingly tender-hearted and was often teased by the group for being too kind for such an ignoble life. For this reason, Jesper was assigned the innocent role of berry picker. It was not just innocence that set berry picking apart from the gang's more wicked undertakings, for it was the only duty performed without the safety of night's concealment. Jesper, no stranger to solitude, did not protest that he alone worked while the others slept soundly, tucked away in the cave at the bottom of Blackbridge Canyon. On one such occasion, Jesper decided to get an early start. He left the cave, berry basket in hand, and set out into the woods before the morning sun had even brushed against the tallest treetops. It was colder in the mornings, but the headway dawn afforded meant Jesper could reach the furthermost berry patches without worry of being chastised for tarrying upon his return. It took over 3 hours on foot to reach his destination, and along the way, Jesper had passed by many a familiar bush, all priorly pillaged and so bereft of berries that one would have to dedicate several moments in earnest examination before finding a single one. Jesper was patient, but even patience has its limits. He was confident that even accounting for the time lost to this long stretch of travel, his efforts would be well worth the pains. Surveying the patches in this new grove surprised even Jesper. The red dots suspended among the leaves seemed as numerous as stars in the skies. Upon seeing such a bounteous sight, he clutched his berry basket tightly and nearly toppled over out of joy. Once he had regained his senses, Jesper quickly made a decision. He would not reveal the location of this newfound treasure. Instead, he would earn the respect of his confederates, who, upon seeing his yield, might attribute the success to hard work. Smiling at his plan, Jesper set off to fill his basket and was making steady strides in this task when the sound of thundering hooves interrupted him. A carriage! A carriage is approaching! The thought of it made Jesper freeze. Had he been so enchanted by his discovery that he had neglected to observe his surroundings? How could a roadway be so close? He ducked down and crept toward the impending sound, hiding behind one of the larger bushes nearby. It was only a moment more before the sound source revealed itself. Within 50 paces of where Jesper hid, an elegant carriage of gold trim came soaring around a corner of trees, led by 2 beautiful white horses and conveyed by a stern-looking driver seated atop the vehicle, flaunting the most sophisticated regalia Jesper had ever seen. It was not just any carriage, it was a royal carriage. Even without ever having witnessed such a sight before, Jesper was certain. The sight had so transfixed Jesper that he stood awestruck, unable to tear away as the carriage approached. The little concealment the bush provided was soon proven unequal to the driver's lofty perch, and upon spotting the boy he pulled the reins with such effect that the noble steed slid to a sudden halt with precise control. "You, boy! Get out from behind that bush," he shouted with a rigidity that betrayed a modest amount of fear. "You startled me half to death coming round the bend of my own drive, and me seeing such an unfamiliar face in a place where there ought not be any face." Jesper quickly contemplated running. The man was much older, and his dress was suitable for courtly behavior, not dashing through the bramble and mud. I was picking berries." Jesper raised the half-filled basket up to allow the driver to see the proof of his words. The demeanor of the man suddenly changed. It was a change that Jesper was familiar with. He had many times seen the same stern expressions in the most fiendish bandits melt away when presented with a berry basket. Any suspicions that the driver might have had instantly evaporated, for even the notion of a member of the Unholy Hounds picking berries seemed farcical. The softened expression even made allowances for a smile. "Berries, eh? Say, you couldn't have picked a better spot for them, could you? I used to pick berries here as a boy." Jesper took his cue to finally step forward out from behind the bush, proudly brandishing his basket. "I know, and what luck I found them! I have only just begun picking, and look how many I have! It would have taken me 4-fold the time back home to procure this number." The driver bent down for a closer look. "And where is your home, boy? Must be quite far." Jesper replied with a scripted response. "A little south of Tanner Fork, just past the burnt woods." "My God, that is far. You couldn't have come all that way only this morning." It was true, Tanner Fork was in the exact opposite direction that Jesper had traveled, and While that response would seem perfectly reasonable in a location closer to Blackbridge Canyon, he could see why it might seem less believable here. Sir, I have traveled much farther for much less profit. I dare say there is no distance yet made by man that would not be worth undertaking for a prize such as these. Surely you have tasted them for yourself. Jesper felt happier with this response, as it seemed to amplify the man's smile. In my youth often, but perhaps I took it for granted, because I never had to travel very far, and even then my father would always drive us here in our carriage, so I'm ashamed I never had to walk such a stretch to earn an equal reward. It was Jesper's time to smile. Then let my efforts reward us both today. He raised the basket even higher. A taste in memory of your youth, sir. The driver chuckled and removed one glove, bending over the seat to reach down to the basket, and at the moment his fingers touched the first berry, the dagger in turn met his throat, cutting through a superficial layer of skin and drawing blood. Jesper caught the man's startled eyes. And for that taste I will have your purse, sir, in memory of my youth. The driver's arm had gone stiff, his chin raised and trembling, more frightened than he had ever been before. Whether unable or incapable of speaking, he did not respond to the boy. Perhaps he did not think his jaw could afford to be engaged at this particular time. Jesper let the basket drop, freeing his other hand to probe the man's pockets. Do not mistake me, sir. I will not kill you if you give me no cause. Though I will admit the thought of taking your carriage and leaving you the indignity of walking appeals to me. Unable to find a purse in the man's coat, Jesper pivoted to search the seat under him. Why have you no purse upon your person? The driver slowly raised his hand cautiously, pointing toward the carriage door behind him. Jesper lowered the knife's edge a small degree to allow the man to speak, which he did in turn softly. There's a lockbox in the carriage. Well, come down then and grant me the courtesy of sparing your life and binding your hands. A concession, I assure you, of my tender heart, for it would be much easier to slit your throat. The man started to comply, slowly lowering himself from the driver's seat of the carriage. Once down, Jesper guided him away from the carriage to a nearby tree where he instructed him to get on his knees and put his hands behind his back. Excusing his inexperience, the man indulged Jesper while he figured out how to adequately bind him. The smile and kindness Jesper had seen on the man's face, now nothing more than a distant memory. In their place, cold, dark eyes, displaying no emotion. I wonder, should I grant you the same clemency you're showing me? Jesper stopped, surprised by the question, but ignored it, secured the final bindings, and then hastily returned to the carriage. With one hand on the door's handle, he turned back to the man. If there is no lockbox, there will be no clemency. Inside, the carriage was surprisingly dusty and unswept, a stark contrast to the elegant and polished golden facade of the exterior. It had apparently been many years since a passenger had enjoyed passage inside this vehicle. This all but confirmed what Jesper had suspected. The driver of this carriage was not a liveried servant in the employ of some greater master. Any curiosity that this observation might have further produced was quickly abandoned upon seeing what rested under the carriage's back seat. A large wooden lockbox. Despite its hefty appearance, the box was surprisingly easy to handle. Within a few minutes, Jesper had dislodged it from its hold and carried it out into the sunlight. Inspecting the box carefully, 2 observations were made. Totemic symbols found carved on all 4 sides of the box hinted that the box was very old, and likely not created by Arindian hands. It reminded him of artifacts from the Old World, and was presumably crafted in one of the ancient realms. Secondly, the box was secured by a rusted yet robust padlock and would not open easily without a key. Jesper looked over to see the driver quietly observing from his indentured position. Do you perhaps have a key you can provide me to open this box? Without emotion, the driver replied, There is no key to that box. Jesper stood up. Easy enough, then. He headed over to a nearby rock of sizable dimensions and lifted the stone up, carrying it back to the box. If there was ever a time when that lock had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. With one hit, the stone had completely shattered the rusted lock. He bent back down and opened the lid. Inside was an effigy, a crude figure chiseled from stone. Without too much deliberation, Jesper bent down and picked it up, somewhat surprised how heavy it seemed given how light the box had felt. Having expected to find something more akin to gold or gems, he looked questioningly to the man, hoping to find an explanation. The driver's smile had once again returned. You are cursed, boy, for deadly is the stone. You have opened that which should never have been opened, and you are cursed. Jesper carried the effigy over to the man and shoved it in front of his face. What is it? That's 1. Feeling his disappointment rising to anger now, Jesper tightened his grip on the effigy. "One what, you mumbling agentor? And in God's name, why have you no purse upon your person?" The man did not seem intimidated. "1 pace." He paused for effect. 12 more, and you will be dead." He only had a second to flinch before the effigy struck him in the head and put an end to his cryptic ramblings. If there ever was a time when the old man had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. Jesper looked down at the sculpted stone figure now splattered red. Was it cursed? Was he cursed? He had, of course, heard stories of curses and had never doubted their validity in the past, but now that he was standing face to face with the possibility of being cursed, his mind pleaded with him to be skeptical. And if he was cursed, what difference would the knowledge make? A dozen more paces would not be enough to find another living soul, to say nothing of the chances of procuring a remedy. If he did not move from where he now stood, he could live maybe another 3 or 4 days, maybe more given the abundance of nearby berries, a plan that, if we ignore its obvious faults, might provide additional opportunities for help to come along. But what good would that do, to be discovered here, beside a body, stolen goods in hand, bloated from berries, and raving about a curse that could very well not be real? No, it would be most certainly better to face one's fate now, take a dozen paces, and see if life goes on. But Jesper found his legs unable to make that first step. His mind was unable to convince his limb to waste away 1/12 of his life in a single motion. Feeling the desperation sink in, he hopelessly looked about him for a solution, and if, by some stroke of luck, the gods had heard his plea, a miracle materialized before him as if he found himself suddenly at the end of a fairy tale. 2 white horses and a carriage of golden trim were beside him, the answer to his immediate prayers. He laughed at his fortune and calculated the short number of paces back to the road. 4, perhaps only 3 if he jumped. He made a quick survey to see if there was anything he wished to grab before taking the plunge. He thought about removing the driver's fancy coat, as that appeared to be of some value, but the additional risk of undertaking such a task was too great to chance, and so after a profound breath he took his 2nd, 3rd, and 4th steps, though they were quite large. Seated now behind the horses, he reached for the reins and suddenly realized he was still gripping the effigy. If the curse was real, then it would certainly be better left here. If, on the other hand, the story was fictitious, there might be some appraisal that could be made of the figure. It was, after all, found within a lockbox whose typical function often secures objects of value. Having witnessed firsthand the horrors of destitution, Jesper found his mind equally reluctant to allow his hand to let go. "If it is cursed, I die. If not today, then tomorrow. And if I die, what care have I?" And with that statement said aloud to the horses, seemingly, Jesper took up the reins with confidence. Part 2. Below the Black Bridge. Miller awoke to some light nudging from a familiar foot. Only one person would have the cheek to awaken her in such ill-mannered fashion. Shaking the sleep from her eyes, she glared up at him in the darkness, but did not say a word. He nudged her again, teasingly, then stepped back into the dim. After taking a moment for her eyes to adjust to the darkness of the cave, Miller remembered. She was on 3rd watch today. Quietly collecting her things and wits, Miller turned as she left, waving to her young friend, who was more than likely already asleep. She crept through the cavern's main passage, careful not to wake the sleeping bandits around her. "Like a hero in a book," she often mused. Quietly, she grabbed a bow from the haphazardly formed pile of weapons, shaking the accompanying quiver in the darkness to assess how many arrows it held. She then walked toward the sun-drenched mouth of the cavern, ready to start her shift. Above her, in one of the few trees found in the canyon, Miller could see that Ravia was already posted. She waved, and Ravia waved back. Calling out to each other was strictly forbidden. Anything louder than a gesture in the canyon was forbidden. When Miller reached the tree, Ravia lowered a braided rope and pointed to the ground behind her. Miller turned, following the finger, and saw a pail of water resting behind a nearby log. She turned back to Ravia, nodded, and secured the pail to the rope. The pail went up first, and in turn, Miller followed. Ravia reached across to grab the water. Miller leaned back to give her space. There was not much room for maneuvering in this tree post, a necessary concession for the concealment the outpost demanded. Ravia tilted the pail up to her mouth dramatically, illustrating how thirsty she had been. Miller laughed silently as water poured out, splashing onto Ravia's face. It was a bit too daring and noisy of a joke, and had the others been around, they would have certainly been scolded for the unwarranted sound. But Miller appreciated the efforts Ravia took to verbalize the silence of the morning. They had been on 3rd watch together for over a month, and during that speechless time their friendship had grown into something special. Affection was unsurprisingly scarce among the unholy hounds. She had felt camaraderie before, but intimacy, never. From their elevated vantage, the girls could see both the concealed entrance of the cavern as well as a clear view of the bridge that spanned across the cavern. Black Bridge was the link between the Gentry lands and the northern mountains, the overpass that connected Orris and Reddington. To the city-faring travelers of the realm, the bridge was an unavoidable crossing. In the day, the task was to ensure that travelers passed by without stopping. At night, the task was to ensure that they do. Like most of her band, Miller preferred the night. The biting glare of the sun might be tolerable to farmhands and bricklayers, but to a cavern-housed bandit it was a source of constant annoyance. In the day, there was no shroud to conceal her expressions or to hide her thoughts. She felt exposed. Ravia touched her elbow and pointed up. Miller, striving to suppress a budding smile, subtly shook her head in response. There were many signs that the unholy hounds used in lieu of words, but the two of them had developed an extended vocabulary. Gestures quietly forged in the shared solitude of their month along the branches. She watched as Ravia shifted, placing her palms flat on the floorboards beneath them. Miller knew what she was trying to say, but shook her head a second time. It was often more fun to pretend not to understand. Ravia rolled her eyes and turned away, looking back to the canyon. Squinting through the leaves, the two girls held still, watching and listening. It was not long until Miller, too, heard the sounds of approach. Ravia held up two bent fingers, and a few moments later 2 men emerged from the bridge's southern end. They were dressed in a familiar uniform, long gray coats with black facings, white waistcoats, and black tricorn hats. They belonged to the local patrol, the Blackguard. Although not an everyday occurrence, their presence at Black Bridge wasn't an unusual sight. It typically indicated an important traveler's impending passage across the bridge. Information that the girls would promptly relay to their leaders as soon as the coast was clear. But this report, while exciting, was rarely acted upon. In Miller's 5 years in the Unholy Hounds, she had never once seen a carriage taken in open daylight when the Blackguard was nearby. The men had nearly reached the bridge's north end when Miller heard the horses, faintly at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. Ravia's eyes met Miller's, the same concern mirrored in each other's expression. This did not sound like the typical carriage cautiously approaching the bridge to cross. Instead of the familiar crunch of the high road's gravel, they heard the harsh clattering of hoofbeats against stone. Both girls quickly redirected their attention downwards, looking through the foliage. The sounds were not coming from the high road, but from the canyon itself. The horses were coming from below the bridge. In an instant, Miller had nocked an arrow and drawn her bow. "Go!" Ravia was gone before the whisper had even left Miller's mouth. The young scout was already sliding down the bank below, racing toward the cave. There was no road that ran below the canyon. There was no reason for numerous horses to be approaching their cave. There was only one reasonable conclusion, and both girls had reached it instantly. The base had been compromised. This was a Blackguard attack. The moment the horses came into view, Miller let loose her first arrow. She was surprised to see a carriage. She had expected cavalry. Before she even finished processing that thought, her second arrow was in the air. Without a trail, it would be unthinkable for a carriage to traverse such rough terrain, yet she watched as the wheels jolted over the rocky riverbed. A third arrow was now in flight, and there would be no need for a fourth. The driver slumped over just moments before the vehicle dipped into a small ditch, slamming into an embankment. The force of this sudden halt immediately shattered the front 2 wheels and catapulted the driver from his seat. Utterly confused now, Miller quickly glanced over her shoulder to see if any horses were also approaching from the rear. Down in the canyon, the entire horde of the Unholy Hounds came spilling forth from the earth, as if hell itself had suddenly sprung open. The group seemed even more bewildered than Miller, half asleep and tripping over one another in a desperate attempt to engage an unseen enemy in combat. Miller could see Ravia among their number, the only one looking up at her. Her expression was chilling. There would be no need for a silent gesture to convey what they both now realized. They had made a mistake. The gang's chieftain, Geoffrey Heartslasher, led the others, cautiously approaching the crashed carriage like a suspicious fox would near a baited trap. There were no words exchanged as the group crept forward in customary silence. A dozen or so paces in front of the wreckage lay the far-flung driver, an arrow protruding from his broken body, and beside him, a blood-stained effigy carved from stone. Miller was inconsolable. Jesper had always been her favorite. He had always shadowed her in the night, clinging to the hems of her every move, the way a child tails behind an older sibling. Tender-hearted, she had always called him, though deep down she had known that wasn't quite true. His appearance of gentleness concealed a raw, resilient durability that emerged in the most perilous of situations. He had been a flower among the nettles of this cave, but he still had thorns, honed by a grim past and 100 hands of misfortune. They buried him in the darkness in the back of one of the larger cavern rooms. He was interred with a berry basket and a silk handkerchief that he had treasured. The mysterious effigy they had found beside him served as a distinguished gravestone, a marker that stood out as somewhat special among the rows of similar swords marking neighboring plots. No one spoke, not even in whispers. There was nothing to say. Miller awoke the next day to a thunderous shaking and rattling of the earth, a far cry from the playful nudging of the previous day. She strained to adjust her eyes, but the choking sting of stirred-up dust caused her to flinch. Panic was also in the air. The sounds of scurried footsteps and clattering feet filled the space around her, but even in alarm the silence was louder. What was it that sounded so strange? Miller closed her eyes tight and used her feet to guide her along the passage. The whispers around her were getting louder, and intense voices could be heard ahead. Louder speech than she had ever heard spoken in the canyon. A growing dread grew as Miller approached the mouth of the cave. Her eyes now opened wide, despite the dust. Shouldn't it be day? Miller felt a hand in the darkness, pulling at her. It was Ravia. The two embraced, and Miller did not need to see her to understand. Ravia placed 2 bent fingers against Miller's cheek, and with that touch against her face, Miller felt the same sinking feeling from the previous day. 2 bent fingers confirmed what Miller had suspected. The girls had forgotten to relay one critical piece of information to the others. An hour or so later, the screams began. Blood-curdling cries of hopeless desperation. Captain Fodrick Lee of the Blackguard looked down from the ridge of the canyon to the collapsed entrance of the cave. Ah, he grinned, now they speak. The end. So that was quite a long tale. The short version is Jesper, working for the Unholy Hounds, robs a guy of a cursed effigy. The guy says it's cursed, you're going to die in 13 steps. Jesper decides to save his life. He gets in the carriage. He rides it to the cave where he's from. But because the carriage belongs to the Blackguard, his companions think that he's Blackguard, so they shoot him dead. Well, Miller and Ravia also saw the Blackguard on top of the bridge, and they never told anyone that that's what they saw. So all this commotion happened down there. Jesper died. They went back to the cave and buried him. The Blackguards now saw the location of their hideout, collapsed the entrance, and killed all of the Unholy Hounds in one fell swoop. That's the story. It's a nice little pick-me-up to read to the kids before bedtime. And it doesn't solve any puzzles for us. This entire book does not give us a single puzzle. What it will do is it will let us unlock curse mode. It doesn't unlock it yet. It's going to add the cursed effigy to the game, and if we get the cursed effigy, we will become cursed, but we can also start a brand new file in curse mode. And in curse mode, a lot of bad things happen every time you draft rooms. Like you lose keys and coins and gems and stuff. And you start every day with 13 steps, 1-3. That's how it goes. And the goal of curse mode is to reach room 46 under those conditions. I'm not really going to worry about it because I do not care. Let me see if I can get something turning to the left here. Dang it, I don't want to lose all my... I don't want to lose this either. Well, let's do that. I don't want to lose the steps because I want to make it to the reservoir. I'm not going to buy anything from there. It does remove a shop from my draft pool, which is good, because now I can go to the funeral parlor and try drafting out of here. Good grief. I'm just trying to get a room out in the open that gives me a lot of space so I can start going for... Okay, I do want this, though. I do want to have the observatory because I want to get myself up to 36 stars. Potential for gems. This just gives me a gem outright. Apples. Ugh, now my voice is like dead after reading for 25 minutes. That is a long book. I don't want shops yet. I want something like this. because this will give me plenty of gems to work with. And now I'm going to take the Banner of the King and add shop rooms. Aquarium counts as a shop room. Now I just need that doggone laundry room. There it is. We're going to swap our keys and our coins. Ugh, throat's all clogged up now. This is right. So I'm going to have 29 keys. I think that's more than enough to go through all of the chests downstairs. But that is the primary goal of today. If nothing else happens today, we've been down to the reservoir and we've taken care of whatever sanctum key is there. Could I do anything else? I don't think it's possible, or it's very unlikely that I would get any of the other sanctum keys today. I could set up an experiment and try to clear more crates, or perhaps I wouldn't lower the reservoir. I would have to fill the reservoir again and lower it to do that. Although that could be worth it. I have the key card. I can go back up that way if I like. So we're going to head down and look at all those treasure chests. We'll find something, don't worry. I don't think there's even 29 of them. I think we'll be good. So we'll just start opening them. This is a white chest with wind marks on it. Green memos are lies. That could be true. I know we had that memo that said that... no, it wasn't it. It was green memos in white boxes. Green memos in white boxes are always lies. So green memos are not necessarily lies. Blue box with a sun symbol. The green memos in boxes near this box are both lies. So yeah, that's a lie. The sanctum key is not in a box. It is buried. This could be true or false. Red box with a moon symbol. A black box contains allowance tokens. That has to be a lie because it's a red note. So allowance tokens are not in a black box. The box containing allowance tokens is marked by a moon. It is not marked by a moon because this is a lie. The sanctum key is in a blue box, so that's not going to be true. So it's not in a blue box. It could be buried still. If there's a green note in here, it's a lie. Only one blue box in the water contains a memo with a true statement. That's this one. Oh no, hold on, blue box, not blue memo. Only one blue box in the water contains a memo with a true statement, and that is a true statement. So it could be this one. The box containing allowance tokens is marked by wind. So it said it's marked by moon. So it's not a moon or a wind mark at all. Is this the one that says the green memos are near this box? Where are the green ones? Maybe this one's a green memo? It's starting to get rather confusing. Ah, here we go. This box contained 3 allowance tokens. Look at that. I like that. And what did it have on it? Yep, a sun. No moon symbol, no wind symbol. Alright, let's keep looking because we want to find the sanctum key. Only one box in the reservoir has a prize. That's, if that's true, it's this box. Green memos and blue boxes are true. That could be true or false. What was the one that said only one blue box contains a true note? So that could be the true note. Let's... Oh, hold on. Yeah, it is. That's the true note. No, there's one more. This one could be a true note. No, it isn't. All green memos found in boxes in the water are true. That is not true, but this one is true. It has to be. Because that's false, then. Yeah, so this has to be true. Green memos and blue boxes are true. The sanctum key is not in a box in the water. Well, good. Green memo in here would be a lie. A prize is in a box marked by wind. It is not. Oh, there it is. This box contained a sanctum key, so it says. Now, I got enough keys, I can just keep looking. The pink boxes do not contain any prizes. Oh, that's pink? It's not red? Alright. I guess just because how dim it is in here, I imagine it would be red. All boxes marked by sun contain memos that are true. Okay. Oh, if we take that to mean, then the note I got, the true treasure of the trove is not in the house, must be true. I'm actually going to save a picture of that. I didn't save a picture of that in my first run. I never found that one. Because that's going to be true always. These other ones are usually just talking about the chests down here. The box containing allowance tokens is white. That is true. Pink boxes marked by this always contain blue memos. It looks like that's true. Sun boxes are always true, and then pink boxes with sun memos always contain blue notes. That could be true. So this is going to have a blue note, and therefore is going to be true. Green memos in white boxes are lies, which I know from the other notes I have. This is going to contain a lie, probably. Sanctum keys in the white box, that's a lie. I don't think there's anything left to find. We're just going for these notes. More than 2 boxes contain prizes, that's false. Only 2 boxes, which means guaranteed this is empty. The sanctum key is in a black box, that is in fact true. It was in there. I think that's all the boxes. We never have any other reason to come down here again. The allowance tokens are not going to come back every day. So we do want to use our sanctum key. I don't want to forget that and then have to come back down and unlock the box again. But it means I can fill the reservoir back up if I would like, and then drain it using other stuff. So let's unlock the sanctum key door. And at some point I'll come over and do the sigils here. We're pretty close to being able to work out, from the information we've seen so far, a couple other places, but we need more information from elsewhere before we really be able to do anything. Just in case, let's open up the room 46. Let's open this up. So we need Arch Ares, Araja, Carrerica, and I don't know what those 3 are yet. I know that Arch Ares is yellow, Araja is purple, and Carrerica is orange. What else do I know? So Carrerica, orange is the one that changes color based on what's around it. Yellow, Arch Ares goes up, like the mountains. Purple, like Araja, goes down. What comes down? We'll think about that. That could help us discover something about it. Carrerica, that doesn't matter. Let's head up to the foundation. What else am I aiming for today? The real big thing was just getting that sanctum key. So I don't care what else happens. I could try to get a shrine and pick a new blessing. I don't want to lose my key card today, so I do want a break room. I want to lose it if I get an observatory tomorrow, then I would lose it tomorrow. Like if I get it every day. That is the goal. So we can solve that puzzle, which is going to just be a pain in the butt. I'm just going to have to leave the computer running. I'll probably edit the video on that one, the one and only time I do it, because it's just excruciating not to. Unless I can think of some way to occupy your time for 20 minutes. Alright, locksmith, kitchen. I don't care about either of these because they're not going to... I'm not going to be buying anything. I've got no money. At least this continues. Oh, neat. Another key. What would I want with the boiler room? Nothing. Conservatory, I do like that. Got more gems. Alright, secret passage I like, so we're going to make that not unusual. It's a straight shot, but I get to pick which room I want. Do I want standard or commonplace? Commonplace means it's going to clog up the draft pool a bit. Standard just lets me see it every once in a while. This actually is just a really good room. I'm going to take it. Mage Chamber, that's going to be rare. Get that out of my face. This is probably the worst room. I don't want this. Chapel, let's make it standard. Let's make it a little bit less common. It is good to have the T-junction. I like that. So I don't want it to be rare, but I don't want to see it all the time. There's going to come a point where I don't care to lose the money. Cool. Set ourselves up for success. What else would I want to do today? Let's get some food. If we have a furnace, which we're not going to do because I hate the furnace so much. Oh, hold on. Let me see what rooms I haven't drafted yet, because there's a trophy for drafting every room. I have not drafted room 40. Would that be the freezer? It's the only one I haven't drafted. All the bedrooms, all the hallways, all the green rooms, all the shops, all the red rooms. Studio additions, there's more from there. Found floor plans, there's one missing. I remember which one it is, I just haven't had a way to like prove that I know where it is yet, so I'm going to do that. Outer rooms have all been done. So I need one here, and I need to grab these studio additions, and then I need to find the freezer. That's all I got to do. Freezer would be not super useful now. Treasure trove is nice. Let's do that. Because now I can take a picture of what I find in here. Makes this... Now a freezer would be good to have. Alright, let's get a picture of this one. 2 realms have the same color banner. Alright, so 2 realms have the same color banner. Okay, I'm taking a note of this because it's different from my other playthrough. I mean, this truth is the same. It's just I have to mark it as different from the other one. This is note 5. It's in a white box with a wind symbol. Note 5, white chest, wind symbol. Because green memos in white boxes are always lies. Therefore, 2 realms do not have the same banner color. All realms have different colors. We know 5 of the realms and their colors, but since we know there are 8 colors from the book Realm and Rune, that means that the last 3 realms have to be the colors white, pink, and green. Because is that right? There's no blue. Black and red we've already done. We have yellow, orange, and purple, so we need white, green, and pink. So we know those are going to be the colors of the final 3 realms. I am running out of keys. Do I want to get this? Do I want to get this? Here, let's blind draft. That's always my favorite thing to do. No. Let's try this. It's furnace. Oh no, it's archives. Archives is also bad. But it's not the worst thing to see. There's my last key. I don't want that. This will let me do an experiment, maybe get something good. Bypass security door, move a crate from the tunnel. This will be bad because I've already entered 2 rooms in the 9th rank. I think this is what it's going to be doing. We're going to, every time we bypass a security door, it's not going to happen much, but if I log into the network, I can turn the security level up from the security terminal, and then maybe bypass 4 or 5 doors. That's the goal. Connect there. Any second now. We're going to keycard system. And in case I decide I get a utility closet when I do that, it's also set to unlock. Okay. So I want to find security doors. Doggone it. I also need keys. But I can head back to the beginning to get keys just fine. Bunk room. Do I have exactly 2 green rooms? I do not. So I don't. Also, doubling gems here is kind of a waste. We're going to take the risk here. See what it is. Classroom. Well, it gives me that. Locked. I have no gems. I have no keys. I feel willing to take really stupid risks right now simply because I've already done the thing today that I intended to do. I've already succeeded. Today is a success. The only way that this can go poorly is if I do not get a break room, which would mean I'd start tomorrow without a key card. Not the end of the world, because it's not the hardest thing to get a new one. It just means I'd have to go the day without it, which means security-wise, I can't just turn up the security and hope for the best. I could head back to the laundry room and get my keys back pretty easily. I'd have 23 keys. Gems is a bit more of a pressing concern at the moment. I would like to find those, but at this point my day is pivoting to getting as many security doors as possible. Which way was it? This was the only way forward, so we're going to head here. Maybe get a door with security. Oh, maybe I'll just do this puzzle, because it'll give me some gems now. Oh, maybe just go to the laundry room, get my keys back, and then do what I want. So this is the only true box. The gems are in the other box with the true statement. If this is true, then this would be true. One of the other boxes is true, and this is false. If this is the only true box, then this is false. The gems are not in the other box of the true statement. It doesn't make any sense. This is also false. One of the other boxes is true. Nah, that can't be right. This has to be false, which means that these are both true, and the gems are here. Hey, 5. Wait, 1, 2. Oh yeah, I got 5 red rooms. Amazing. Let's launder ourselves into some more keys. I feel like that's the way we're gonna go. And here I was thinking the laundry room wouldn't really come in handy ever again. Alright, give me security doors. I want to be clearing that tunnel out. Weight room. I'm okay with this. More security doors, possibly. There's 1. There's 2. That's worth it to me. Break room would be more fun, though. I'll take the music room, see what happens. Security is not helpful. Den is fine. Regular key. Now I'm fine on keys forever. There's my break room. There was a trunk here too, right? Yeah, there's a trunk here. Ah, this will allow me to get the shrine, but I don't want the shrine because I can't pay any money toward it. I would want the shrine when I have money to get the last, or the next blessing from it. 15 is easy. 13 minus 10 is 3. Squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. We divide by 8 is 2. Plus 1 is 3. Squared is 9. Minus 8 is 1. Let's see, 3 divided by 3 is 1, times 3 is 3, squared is 9, divided by 3 is 3. Alright, regular keys are not necessary anymore. Let's pantry it up, get some steps back. Cloister of Rinna is not really what I want to see here. I don't have enough to buy anything in the shop, I don't believe. Because we still... Oh, we did do the swim trunks already, so it would just be... Ah! We can buy this. Cursed Coffers. Once we get this, it's added to the shrine. Ah, I'm just a little short. Wonder what this is. Wine cellar. Now I'm not short. Now I have plenty of gems for the throne room. Let's see. I've got a little bit more steps to use. But I still want to make sure I end the day in the break room. That is important. This prism key ain't going to do anything in the blue room. It has to be the other types. This sort of ends. I mean, I can't get back to here anyway. I don't have enough. Let's take this so I at least have more places to go. Locked trunk is nice. Still just looking for security doors, really. Cool. Pump room actually would be good to see. Patio's not necessary. This could be pump room. It isn't, but it could be. Car key's not useful. Anytime I get the car keys, I don't end up with a garage. Pump room is good so I can drain the pool forever. Boudoir. Sure, why not? I have enough to reroll to get that pump room. I don't think I'm going to get it. The chances are pretty good I'm going to mess this one up. Having the vault is not helpful now. What would I use the coins for? Tell you what, let's start tomorrow with extra steps. Wait, what am I taking that gem for? Ah, I can do one more out of the hallway. It's not going to have security doors, unfortunately. Security. I don't know. Yeah, that would have been asking too much to get lucky there. Well, I think this day is over. We got 3 triggers of the tunnel, which is better than nothing. I got another sanctum key, so I've done 6 out of 8. I just have the vault and the last door of 8 to deal with. At some point I'll talk about the last door of 8, how you're supposed to know that puzzle, and we'll get to it. But for now, we're going to end it here. Call it a day. A 50-minute day, half of which was reading one single book. And it's a long book. Nice little story, but boy oh boy, does it take a while. Do I have any? I think I have new rooms on this day, maybe? No, I just need to find the last rooms. Okay, that's all for today. Thanks everyone for watching. I've been KEYOFW, and you've been whoever you are, and have a good one.